Hey guys, Hussein and welcome to YouTube channel. So in this video, we are going to be learning about TypeScript with Next.js. So what does that mean? Like you might be saying, Hussein, you have a TypeScript course, you also have a Next.js course. So like what's the point of this course? In this course, I'm not going to be teaching you TypeScript, React.js and Next.js because I have a complete courses on each of these topics. So I'm not going to be teaching you there, but instead what I'm going to be doing is that in this course, I won't be covering TypeScript, Next.js directly. Instead, my focus will be on guiding you through the process of incorporating types into your Next.js projects, okay? So I'm not going to be teaching you all of these topics because I have entire courses on them. And instead, I'm going to be teaching you like how you are going to be adding a types for your Next.js projects or React.js projects. Now, the next question is how the outline of the course will look like. I'm going to be just teaching you all of these stuff, which you can see right here on the screen. Nothing else than that, because I believe you don't have to know nothing, but you just have to know these topics in Next.js and TypeScript. So yeah, this is what we are going to be learning throughout this course. So if you like my content, feel free to subscribe to this channel and see you in the course. Next, we are going to be making a set of 4-hour coding journey. Alright, so now let's just make a set of 4-hour coding journey. So the first thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to just open my terminal inside my desktop because I want to create my Next.js app inside my desktop. And what I want to do is that I'm going to just write like, let me just zoom in a bit. I'm going to just write like npx create next app and then latest. Let me just hit enter. So it's going to ask us for the name. Let's just wait for that. And yep, I want to proceed. What will be the name of my app? Next.js, I guess. And would you like to use TypeScript? Yep. Would you like to use ESLint? Yep. Tailwind CSS. Even though we are not going to be using Tailwind CSS, but I'm going to still check, I'm not going to use Tailwind CSS, so let me just hit no right here. You can if you wanted to. src directory, no. And app router, of course, yes. And customize aliases, no. Yeah, no. So just hit enter right here. So it's going to just create that app for us. And it is successfully completed. So I'm going to just use like cd and next-ts. Okay, so if I hit enter, then I'm going to open this folder in my VS Code. So I'm going to just write like code and dot, hit enter, so it's going to automatically open this folder in my VS Code right here. Okay, so this is how currently things looks like right here. And I'm going to go ahead and remove a few things like, first of all, let me just run this file so we can see everything a bit better. So I'm going to use npm run dev to run this file. I don't need this favicon, so I'm going to just delete that. Inside the globals, I'm going to go ahead and remove almost every single thing that I currently have right here. Okay, so let's just remove all of them, clear out, or let me just even delete this global.css file right here. Then I'm going to go ahead and go to the layout. We're not going to be touching the layout in this course. So the next thing which I want to do is that I'm going to go ahead and remove this main.module.css as well. I'm going to also go ahead to this page.tx file. And let's just remove all of that extra JSX right here because we don't need that. Let's just remove that. And I'm going to also remove this image and also that styling as well. Let me just write h1 and I'm going to just say for now hello. Let me just save my file and check out every single thing. Let's just remove that and come on. I'm going to just hold control and click on this link right here. So it's going to open my Next.js app right here. At first, it's gonna take a bit of time because this is a Next.js, baby. You gotta wait for that. So we also don't need this public folder. So I'm gonna just also say bye-bye to this public folder as well. And globals is not defined, so we have to go ahead and go to our layout. And let's just remove this globals from here. Save my file and refresh. And here you can see we are now getting hello right here. So yeah, that was all about the setup of Next.js. Next, we are going to be learning about component props. Typing. Alright, so now let's talk about how we are going to be attaching types to our component props. So I already assume that you guys already know how to create a component, how to provide a props to your components. So I'm not going to be explaining that. And if you guys don't know what a component is and how to provide a props to your component, so you should definitely check out my React.js complete course. Anyways, so now let's just create a components folder. And I'm going to just give a name of like components, and inside these components I'm going to just create one component, give a name of like user.tsx right here. You can provide Next.js if you wanted to, you can provide .ts if you wanted to, but in this case we are creating a TypeScript component, so I'm going to just provide tsx right here. Okay, so if I hit enter, then the next thing which you have to do is that I'm going to just write like RAFCE, and it's going to just create that component for me right here. Okay, so that's looking amazing, but you know what, I want to use that right here. Let me just remove this hello from here. I'm going to just change that to section or something like that. Let's just change this one to section as well, and inside there I'm going to just pass my user. Let me just auto import there right here, save my file, and here you can see we are now getting user right here. So now let's suppose if you want to provide a props for our component, like this component will take, I don't know, maybe some sort of a name, and name will be Alex. This can also take some sort of a number like age, and age will be like, I don't know, 20 maybe, and is student, and the student will be set to true. And I'm going to also specify like, you know what, I guess that would be fine. So that would be fine. So now let me just save my file, and now let's suppose if you want to use these props inside our component. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? Well, you already know how we are going to be doing that. We just have to use props right here, and inside them we just have to use this. So I'm going to just write, you know, instead of writing this div, I'm going to change that to main, and inside there I'm going to just write h2 or h1 rather, and I'm going to just say first of all like props.name. Let me just duplicate that, and I'm going to also say props.age, and this one will not work because this is a boolean value, but I'm going to use it anyways. So if I save my file, and here you can see we are now getting Alex and also this 20 right here, but we are not seeing this student because this is a boolean value, so that's why we cannot see that. Anyways, so here you can see if I hover my mouse over to these props, so it is saying like perimeter props explicitly has any type, which simply means like you are not using TypeScript anywhere inside your project. You have to provide some sort of a types for your props right here. The first way is to annotate this component is by using just this annotation symbol, and then we have provided the opening bracket and the closing bracket, and inside there we just have to provide a types for our component. Like the first one we have is a string, the second one we have is a number, the third one we have is a boolean. So I'm going to just write first of all for the name, and name will be string, the second one will be age, and age will be number, and the third one we have is student, and it is boolean. Okay, so if I go back and now if I save my file, and here you can see that error is totally gone, and let me just refresh that, and here you can see we are now still getting that same result right here, and that error is totally gone. So this is the first way of attaching types for our props right here. Okay, so we can also even destructure there if you wanted to. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? Well, that's quite simple and easy. Let me just zoom in a bit. We just have to remove these props. Let me just remove them, and we just have to add one more curly braces right here, and inside these curly braces we just have to specify these property names like name, age, is student. So now let me just write like name, age, and is student right here. Okay, or you know, I want to remove this is student because that's a bit awful. Let's just remove this student from here and also from here as well, and let me just remove that from here as well. Now let me just save this file, and now if I hover my mouse over to that, so cannot find the name props because we are not using props, we are destructuring our properties right here, so we no longer have to use these props right here. So I'm gonna just hit Ctrl D and remove both of them, and now if I save my file, this is how you're going to be destructuring your props. This is how you are going to be providing a types for your props, like which type of data your props is going to be holding. So if I save my file, and here you can see the result is totally the same. Okay, so yeah, this is how we are going to be destructuring our props. This is how we are going to be providing a types for our props. Now the next thing which I want to show you is that how in the world we are going to be making our code a bit more cleaner than this one. Like this is not clean code. Like for every component we have provided all of these types, and like we can provide all of them in one line. So how in the world we are going to be solving that? The next thing which we have to do is that we have to create our own custom type. And if you've already watched my TypeScript course, so you already know how to do that, but if you don't, here is how you're going to be doing that. First thing that you have to do is that you have to write a type result keyword, then you have to give some sort of a name for your custom type. So in this case I'm going to just specify like a user shape, and you can give it any name you want, and then it will be equal to these types right here. So now let me just cut these types from here, and now let me just place that right here, and I'm going to just remove this colon from here, save my file, and now we successfully register our type right here, and inside this type we have a name and age, And now if you want to use this shape, like user shape type somewhere inside our component, this is how we are going to be using that. So we just have to first of all write this colon, and then we have to write a user shape. And if I do that, let me just save my file. If I do that, and if I hover my mouse over to this name, so it's going to give us a string. And if I hover my mouse over to this edge, it's going to give us this number right here. Okay, so this is how we are going to be defining our custom type for our props, and this is how we are going to be annotating that custom type for our component. Okay, and you can do that in two ways. Like you can create your custom type by using a type result keyword, or you can create an interface for that. So now let me just show you that as well. And now let me just comment this line out, and instead of writing a type, I'm going to just write an interface. And if I just write an interface, and we have to remove this equal to sign because this is an interface. And now if I save my file, and here you can see that will still work, like totally will be working. If I save my file, so here you can see we are now getting Alex, and we are also getting the value of 20 right here. So yeah, that was just a quick introduction of how to provide types for your props of your component. Okay, so we learn in three ways. The first way we learn is by providing it inline. The second way we learn is by separating them to some sort of a type. The third way we learn is by providing this interface right here. Alright, so now let's talk about a children's in components. So in some situation we will want to use our component like this. So if you guys don't know what a children's are, you don't have to worry about that. So in some situation we would want to use our component like this, and we would want to provide some sort of a HTML elements, or I don't know, any kind of props right here. So in this case I'm gonna just say like this is a children prop or something, or you know, this is a children will be fine. And now why in the world we are getting this error if I hover my mouse over to there? So the type children, and it is taking element, is missing in the following properties of the user shape. Okay, so it is already giving us this error like you don't have any type for the children inside this shape right here, this user shape. So if I just remove this interface, let me just uncomment this line out, and if I save my file, it's gonna still gives us that same error like you have to define some sort of a type for your children. But now the question is which kind of type we provide for this children property. So children, we don't know that, like which kind of type we should provide for this children. Now let me just remove that, and also remove this one, and I'm gonna just use my children right here. And now I'm not going to be providing anything right here. So if I save my file, so it's going to give us like this is a children, like this is totally working, but it is now giving us this error like you have to specify some sort of a type for your children. Okay, so to provide a type for them, we don't have to do nothing. We just have to provide this property name, and then we have to just use like React and then node. Okay, and if I hit enter right here, so it's going to automatically import this React node for us. And now I just have to copy there and annotate my component with this React with this shape user right here. So if I save my file, and it's gonna still gives us like this is a children, but now that error is gone. So now I'm curious like what in the world is this React node. So if I hold control and click on that, it's gonna brings us to, you guessed it, this index.d.ts file, which only includes the types, nothing else, like no real code. Like this file include no real code, it only include the types, nothing else. Okay, so here you can see we have this React node, and we have a React node for the React element, we have for a string, for the number, and for all of them. And this package comes by default once we install the Next.js in our machine. Okay, so if you are using some sort of an older version of React.js, like by using create React app, then you have to install this. This is something called a declaration file, so you are going to have to install them manually. But in Next.js, we don't have to install them manually, we just have to use them. So now that we know that these are a types, nothing else, so we can specifically tell our compiler that these are a type. Do you have to do that? No, you don't have to do that. But if you specifically tell your compiler like these are a type, so once you compile your code, so that types will be gone. Okay, so like that types will be totally gone from your project, and you will get a small amount of types. But you will just get those amount of type which you just need for your projects, and it will just ignore these React nodes right here. So if I save my file, let me just refresh there, and here you can see this is how we are going to be working with these childrens right here in React.js. So now let's talk about something called the FC, or you can say the functional component in React.js. In the older version of React.js, if you've been writing React.js code for a lot of time, so you already know about a class-based component. Like we would have to create a class-based component, and for those we would have to annotate differently. But nowadays nobody use a class-based components, everybody use a functional based component. So now let me just show you the alternative way to add types for your props, okay, and how that's gonna look like. This is how it's gonna look like. So I'm going to remove that from here, and I'm gonna also remove this shape from here, and I'm going to remove this children from here, and I'm gonna just say like name, and I'm going to also specify the edge, and I'm not going to provide any student or anything like that. And I'm going to also remove that. Let me just call my component like that. I'm going to provide the name of Hussein, and I'm going to also specify what the edge of 20 right here. Okay, so now let me just save my, so now let me just go ahead and show you the alternative way of adding a prompts for your component. So let's just render the name. I'm going to also duplicate that, and I'm going to also provide the edge right here. So to add that, the first thing which you have to do is that you have to define your type somewhere. So how you are going to be doing that, you can either use the interface if you wanted to, or you can use the type. So in this case, I'm going to just give a name of like shape, and inside there I'm going to just register my name, and I'm going to also register the edge as well, and the edge will be number in this case. Okay, and I'm going to have to provide this equal to sign because this is a type. And now if you want to provide or annotate our component with this shape type, this is how you're going to be doing that. Well, you just have to provide this colon right here, and then you have to provide FC, which is called the functional component. And if I hit enter, so it's going to bring it from this React.js right here. Okay, and this is attached with React.js, like this is a React specific thing. And the next thing which you have to do is that you have to specify which kind of types you want to add for this component. So this is a generic function. Now let me just show you that. Here you can see this is a generic function, and it is taking some sort of a type of object. So in this case, I'm going to just specify the shape right here. And now let me just close that. And this is another way of providing a types for your props. So now let me just save that. And here you can see we are still getting this Hussein, and we are still getting this 20. We don't have any error. Oh yeah, we do have errors from the previous code. Now let me just rerun that once again. So here you can see we are not getting any errors, and this is how we are going to be attaching the types in another way. So now let's learn about how we are going to be using a Next.js dynamic routes and TypeScript. So I'm going to create a folder, give a name of like users, and inside there we are going to be creating yet another folder. I'm going to give a name of like user ID right here, or you know what, just ID would be fine. And inside there I'm going to just create like page.tsx right here. And inside this folder, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just define my user component. So I'm going to use like user. And now if I just save my file, and we are already running there, first of all go to the user, and I'm going to specify some sort of ID right here like 2. What are we doing? Users rather, and I'm providing a user. I forgot to include the s, and if I hit enter right here, so it's going to give us that user right here, which is totally a-okay. So now the next thing which you have to do is that we have to get that params right here, or that specific ID. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? Well, first of all we have to destructure our property right here, or params to be precise. So I'm going to just destructure my params, and I'm going to also deeply destructure them by using the ID. Okay, so we are going to be getting this ID from these params. So first of all we are destructuring these params, then we are using a nested destructuring, and we are also destructuring this ID right here. And now let me just use them. So I'm going to just use like these ID right here, and now if I save my file, if I hover my mouse over to that, so being element ID explicitly has the type of any right here. Now we successfully destructured this property, we successfully use that right here. But the next thing which you have to do is that we have to provide a type for these params and also for this ID as well. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? You already know how to do that. We are going to be using type of user shape, and inside there we have to define for the params. So in this case params will be an object, and inside this object we will have our ID, and that ID will be a number. Okay, so now we have to copy this name, and we just have to annotate that right here. Okay, so now let me just annotate that right here, save my file, and that error is successfully gone, and we are now getting this 2. So if I just provide like, I don't know, maybe 29 or something like that, so it's going to give us that 29 right here. So this is how you're going to be providing a types for your params right here in Next.js. With the help of TypeScript, we can create a lot of reusable components. So now let me just show you that right here. So we are going to be just creating one component which will be a bit reusable. We are not going to be going into that much craziness, but now let me just show you how you are going to be creating a reusable component in TypeScript. So I'm going to just delete this one as well. So now let's just delete that. And inside this components folder, I'm going to define two components. The first one will be user info.tsx, and I'm going to just use the RAFCE, and then I'm going to just define yet another which will be admin info, info.tsx right here, and I'm going to use the RAFCE as well right here. And now we have to use these components somewhere, so I'm going to go ahead and go to my page. Let's just remove this user component from here, and I'm going to just provide, like, first of all, the user info right here. Let me just call that, and I'm going to also call my admin component as well, so admin info as well. Now let me just save my file, and now we successfully register that. But let's suppose we have a lot of props, like we are passing, like username will be, I don't know, Alex, and we are going to be also providing an email in this case, so email will be like alex@gmail.com or something like that. We're going to be also providing some sort of an edge right here, and let's suppose we want to also provide some sort of a location right here. Let me just go back, and I'm going to provide like Earth and also the United States of woohoo. Okay, so this is going to be for the user, and this one will be, and we're going to be also providing a lot of data for the admin as well. So I'm going to just specify like Alex as an admin, or should I provide Hussein? Email, email will be also hussein@gmail.com, which is not my real email, by the way. And 20 years old and 20 years of age. Location will also be, I guess, that same location, or you know what, Mars. Mars and unknown. Okay, and I'm going to also specify yet another extra property which this user info will not have, but this admin will have. So I'm going to just write like admin, and I'm going to just set that to yes. So now let me just go ahead and use these props right here. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and go to this user info, and inside this user info, first of all, I'm going to have to provide my shape right here, and it's going to take the username of string. It's going to also take the email of string as well. It's going to also take the edge of number, and I'm going to also provide the location of string as an array. Okay, so now we successfully define our shape right here. The next thing that you have to do is that we have to destructure our values like username. We also have to destructure our email. We also have to destructure the edge and location as well, and we have to annotate that with this info shape right here. Now inside this component, we are going to be using that, so I'm going to just use like ul, and inside this ul we would have our li, and I'm going to first of all use my username, and then let me just duplicate that a few times. The next thing that you have to do is that we have to specify the email, and also for the edge, and json.stringify, and let's just provide, I don't know, maybe this location will be fine. Location, there we go. So now if I save my file, and I'm going and I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Let's just copy that, and let me just put that inside this admin info as well. And in this case, we are going to be also providing a type for the admin as well, which we are providing right here. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? Let's suppose if we just provide like admin, and if I just write a string, that would totally work. But the problem is that we are repeating these types again and again inside our component. Like here you can see we are now repeating the inside this admin info, and we are also repeating the inside our user info right here, and we are just providing this admin. Okay, so like how in the world we are going to be solving this problem? You know what, let me just write a code, and then I'm going to explain how we are going to be solving that. So I'm going to even also copy these coding as well. Let me just copy that. Copy that, and I'm going to just place that right here, save my file, and now let me just destructure all of their properties from here. Let me just copy that and place that right here, save my file. Let me just go back, and here you can see our problem is now successfully solved. Like here you can see we have a data for the user, and we also have a data for the admin as well. But let's suppose if you also want to destructure that admin as well, let me just also destructure that. Was that is admin or what? Yeah, admin, just admin. So now let me just destructure that, and I'm gonna also use that inside this li right here, this admin. So now if I save my files, here you can see we are just providing this yes property right here, and we have to repeat ourselves again and again. And let's suppose if you are working with a lot of data, like a lot of types, so we would have to copy that types again and again. We would have to reuse that in every single component of ours. So now the question is how to solve this problem. And to solve this problem, the first thing that you have to do is that we have to go ahead and go to this user info, and I'm going to just use this export right here. We just have to export these types right here, and we would be able to use these types anywhere inside our program. Like I'm going to just remove that from here. Let's just remove that, and I'm going to just import my type of info. So if I hit enter, now let me just copy that. We are already using this, and I don't have to use that again and again. But we have one problem right here. We don't have any type for this admin inside this component. Like here you can see we have a username, email, age, and location, but we don't have any type for this admin inside this user info. So how in the world we are going to be solving that? Well, we just have to create a separate type for this component, and that's it. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? We just have to provide this type. You can give it any name you want. So in this case, admin info list right here, and it's going to be coming from this info. Like we are now using this info right here, and we would also have to attach this extra type which we are providing right here. Okay, so I'm going to just write a string. So what are we currently doing? We are using all of their types right here which we've defined in the user info page right here, and we are just attaching this admin type, and we are storing that inside this admin info list. So now I'm going to just copy this admin info list, and now let me just put that right here, and here you can see that error is gone, and we are no longer repeating ourselves. Like we define our type right here inside one file. We can reuse that types right here, and we can even provide our own types if you wanted to. So you can provide types for like employee, and you can provide types for anyone you want. Okay, so this is how we are going to be building a reusable types in TypeScript. So now let's talk about a useState with TypeScript. So I know this one will be totally simple and easy, but later you are going to use a lot this useState inside your projects, and you won't know how to provide a types for the useState. So now let me just show you that. So I'm going to just create a component given name of like counter.tsx right here. I'm going to just provide my RAFCE, save my file. Let me just go ahead and use that right here, counter. And now let me just save my file. So here you can see it's going to give us this counter right here. So yeah, I don't want to waste your time, but now let me just quickly show you how you're going to be working with the useState by using a TypeScript, or how you're going to be attaching a type for your useState. So let's suppose we would have some sort of a counter like set count, and it's going to be equals to the useState right here. And inside there we are going to be just storing the value of like 0 in this case. So if I save my file and if I hover my mouse over to there, so here you can see this is a generic function. Like you can explicitly define your types right here. So here you can see it is now by default inferring the type of number. But if I just provide, like instead of providing a 0, if I just provide some sort of a string right here, and if I hover my mouse over to that, so it's going to give us a string right here. So we can totally do that. The syntax will look something like this. You already know how to use the generics if you are coming from my TypeScript course, but if you don't, this is how you're going to be explicitly defining your type right here. So let's suppose if you want to store the value of like string, so this is how we are going to be attaching the string value, or a number if you wanted to. So here you can see this is how we are going to be attaching a number value. Then we have to define some sort of a number right here. Okay, so in this case I'm going to just specify the value of 0 right here. So here you can see that error is totally gone. You can define your types anywhere you want, like type, shape, and then just provide some sort of a val and string value or something like that, and you can reuse that type right here if you wanted to, or you can provide some other types if you want to, like in this case undefined. If you want to provide the undefined value, so you can either provide this value which we've already defined right here, or you can provide this undefined value. So let's suppose if I just provide this undefined, so here you can see that error is totally gone. Okay, so this is how you are going to be doing that. That's important because you're going to be using that a lot in your projects. So that's why I have to show you that, because this is a course on TypeScript and Next.js. So now let me just provide some sort of a number. I'm going to just store the value of 0 right here, and we can totally increment and decrement that if you want to, like increment, and we can just attach, or let me just use the set count, and I'm going to just provide a count plus 1. Let me just duplicate that, and provide decrement and just remove them. And let me just create 2 buttons, but first of all let me just write h1 and provide my count variable right here. Let me just create 2 buttons right here, and I'm going to just pass the on click event handler on there, and I'm gonna just say like, come on, what the hell am I doing? And I'm gonna just say like set count, or you know what, I don't have to create the increment and decrement, I can do that in one line. Set count will be set to count plus 1. Let's just duplicate that, and decrement will say minus. So this one will be plus and this one will be minus. So if I save my file, whoa, because we are using Next.js, so we have to use the use client directive right here to make it as a client component, because currently we are working with the useState and we are also working with these event handlers, so we have to make it as a client component. So this is for the plus and this is for the minus right here. So this is how you're going to be attaching a types for your useState. Alright, so now let's talk about a forms, the useRef and events. So I'm going to just delete that counter component from here. I'm going to create yet another component, give a name of like form.tsx, and now let me just write something inside there. Let me just save my file, cut that from here, and form, let me just render that right here. Now let me just save my file and refresh that. So it's going to give us yep, that's running. So it's going to give us that form right here. The first thing that you have to do is that we have to store some sort of a data. So what I want to do is that first of all, I'm going to just store some sort of a data. So I'm going to just create a type for that. So I'm going to just write like form data, and inside there I'm going to store the name of like string. Also the email will be string, and also the password will be string as well. Like all of the values will be string. The next thing which I want to do is that I want to store some sort of a data inside my state. So I'm going to just write like submitted, submitted submitted data, and set submitted data would be fine, and it's going to be equals to the useState, and I'm going to explicitly define my own data right here. So I'm going to just say like use the form data, and now let me just close that, and initially I'm going to just store the data of like totally empty string, and also for the email will be totally empty string, and for the password as well. Okay, so now if I save my file, that error is totally gone. Now the next thing which you have to do is that we have to use the useRef hook in React.js. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? This is how we are going to be doing that. So I'm going to first of all grab it by using the useRef, or come on, useRef, and if I hit enter, so it's going to auto import it right here for me. There we go. And now I'm going to have to store some sort of a default value. So by default I'm going to store the value of null right here, and now let me just store that in some sort of a variable, give a name of like name. And now let me just create one more. So I'm going to use like email, and it's going to be equals to the useRef once again, not effect, the useRef, and inside there the default value will be set to null. And let me just create one more for the password as well. So useRef right here, and the default value will be null. So now we successfully register every single thing that we need right here. And the next thing which you have to do is that we have to create a form so that we can work on that form. So I'm going to just create a form, and inside this form we will have a few inputs. So we would have a text input, and it's going to say like placeholder of something, I don't know, enter your name or something like that, your name. And as a reference value I'm going to specify the name right here, which we've already declared right here. Okay, so now I'm going to just create for a few of them, like for the email as well. And for the placeholder I'm going to just say like enter your email or something like that. And for the reference I'm going to pass my email right here, which we've already defined up above. And now let me just provide for the password as well, and I'm going to also provide a placeholder of enter your password. And for the reference I'm going to pass my password right here. Okay, so now we successfully attach all of that stuff right here. Now let me just use a button, and which will just say submit, and I'm going to also specifically define the type of submit right here. Okay, so now if I save my file, that's totally cool, but this is not how we work with the useRef with TypeScript. We have to explicitly define the type of data which we are going to be storing inside this useRef right here. Okay, so how in the world we are going to be doing that? This is how we are going to be doing that. Let me just hover my mouse over to that. So here you can see this is also a generic function, and we can also specifically define our own data type right here. Okay, so how in the world we are going to be doing that? I'm gonna just write a less than sign, and in this case we are going to be using this useRef on this HTML element, so we have to define that HTML element right here. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? This is how we are going to be doing that. I'm gonna just write the HTML input element. So if I just do that, and if I hover my mouse over to this useRef right here, so here you can see it's going to give us like, now in this case we are telling our TypeScript compiler that we are going to be working with the useRef specifically, like we are going to be specifically using this useRef with some sort of a HTML input element. Like here you can see we are using that in HTML input element right here, so that's why we have to explicitly define that right here. You don't have to, like if you don't want to, I mean like if you don't want to, so you don't have to, but if you really want to use that, I mean like if you really want to use a TypeScript with Next.js or React.js, so you have to provide that right here. So I'm going to copy that and place that right here and also right here. Okay, so this is how we are going to be telling our compiler that we are going to be using this useRef on some sort of a HTML input element. Okay, so that's why we are now writing this HTML input element right here. Okay, so that's done. And now let me just save my file, but now let's talk about the events. So if I just write the onSubmit event right here, and if I just write like I don't know, console.log of hello or something like that, so here you can see it's not going to give us any error or anything like that. But if I hover my mouse over to that, and here you can see it is now giving us like it is using the DOM attribute, the HTML form element, and we are now attaching this onSubmit right here. Form event handler, it already knows that, which means like it will automatically infer the value of this form event handler right here, but it will do it once we use it like this way. But if I cut that from here, and if I just write like handle submit right here, and now let me just copy that, and I'm going to go ahead and create it right here up above this return statement. So I'm going to just write const, and I'm going to also pass my event right here, and inside them I'm going to just use like console.log in this case, so console.log of hello right here. If I save my file, and if I hover my mouse over to that, so here you can see it is now taking the event, and that event can be anything, like you can specify anything right here. In this case, like in this situation, now in this case our TypeScript compiler does not have any idea like what the hell is this event parameter, so it will say like it can be anything. But we don't want that. We have to specifically tell our TypeScript compiler that this is a form event, and we are going to be using that form event on the HTML form element right here, which I just showed you a few seconds ago. So we have a form element, and we are going to be using that on the HTML form element. So this is how you're going to be annotating that with this type. So now if I hover my mouse over to that, so it's going to give us like form event and HTML form element right here. So that's then. Now the next thing which I want to do is I want to get the value of name, email, and password. So now I want to do that. So now let me just write like const, and name value will be equals to name, which we are already getting right here, and we are already passing it as a reference right here. So we are going to be getting the dot current and then dot value. So if I do that, and let me just write some console.log right here. So if I just write name value, if I save my file, and if I hover my mouse over to that, so name.current is possibly null. Okay, like here you can see in this case we are specifically defining the value of null right here. So it is now giving us that kind of a warning, not a specific error, but a warning like it can be possibly an error. I mean like not an error, but null. So now if you want to tell our compiler that it cannot be null or it cannot be undefined, so for that we are going to be using this exclamation mark right here, and this is something called the non-null assertion operator, which means like the value can neither be null nor undefined. Okay, so this is how we are going to be telling our compiler like, yeah, you don't have to worry about it, and the value cannot be null or undefined. So this is how we are going to be telling our compiler there. So now the next thing which I want to do is I want to get like an email value, and it's going to be coming from the email.current, and I'm going to have to specifically use that null assertion operator right here. And now let me just provide a value. Const password value will be now coming from the password.current, and now let me just use my null assertion operator, and now let me just duplicate that a few times. I'm going to get the email value, and I'm going to also get the password value as well, password value. Now if I save my file, and we are using the useState, so we got to convert our component to the client component. So I'm going to use the use client, and now let me just save that, and here you can see it's going to give us that form. So we have a name, we have an email, we have a password inputs right here. Now let me just open my console, Let me just go ahead and go to the console right here, and I'm gonna just provide some sort of a name like Alex, and alex@gmail.com, and alex12 or something like that. And now if I click on that, so it's gonna just refresh because I forgot to use my event.prevent default right here. So if I just use that and save my file, and now let me just provide like alex@gmail.com and alex12, and now if I click on that, so it's going to give us their values right here. Okay, so now let me just zoom in a bit. So here you can see it's going to give us all of their values. So now if I want to render all of their values right here, so how in the world we are going to be doing that? I'm going to just remove their console logs from here, and now let me just create a section, and inside this section I'm going to just write h1 of name, and I'm going to just write like submitted data, which we are already getting, and we're going to be getting the name. Let me just duplicate that and change this one to email. And you know what, we're going to be also getting the password as well. So email and password right here. Okay, so now if I save my file, and we have to use that right here somewhere. So we have to also send our data to the submitted data right here. Oh, come on, set submitted data right here. Now let me just copy that, and no, I guess that's fine, that's totally fine. But now let me just use that right here. So I'm going to use the set submitted data, and I'm going to just specify the name of name value, and I'm going to also specify the email of the email value, and also for the password we're going to be using the password value right here. So now if I save my file, and now let me just check it out. So here you can see we have these labels right here. So if I just write like alex@gmail.com and alex12, and now if I click on submit, so here you can see it's going to give us all of that data right here, which is totally okay. So now in this section we learn about three things. The first thing we learn about the useRef. That useRef is a generic function, and here we have to explicitly define like we are going to be using that on something which is a HTML input element. And then we also learn about this event. So we have to explicitly tell our compiler that we have a form event, and we are going to be using that on the HTML form element. And yeah, this is how we are going to be telling our compiler that our value can never be null or undefined. And we also learn about how to work with these events right here. So yeah, that was it about useRef, forms, and events. Alrighty, so now let's learn about ElementWrapper. So in some situation we would want to create a specific component which can only be using either a div, span, h1, or button. Like we can specifically tell our component to use a specific HTML element, nothing else than that. So for that we are going to be working with the ElementWrapper. Like you can create it for anything you want, but you know what, first of all let me just write some code, then you'll get to know what I'm talking about. So now let me just remove that form from here, and now let me just create the ElementWrapper.tsx right here. I'm gonna just use my RFCE, and let me just go ahead and register that right here. Yeah, let me just register that right here. ElementWrapper. Let me just get the save my file and check it out. So here you can see we are now getting this ElementWrapper right here, so which is totally okay. The first thing which I want to do is that I want to create an interface, and inside this interface we are going to be providing our shapes. So I'm going to just use like ElementWrapper prop would be fine, or props rather. And inside them I'm going to just first of all define the element, like which type of element we are going to be creating. So I'm going to just specify a div, or it should be, it should be a span, or it should be h1, or it should be a button right here. Okay, so this is how we are going to be defining our own type of elements right here, and you can give any name to this property right here, but in my case I just give a name of like element type. And yeah, the next thing which I want to do is that it's going to also tag the children as well. So I'm going to just use like React node, and here let me just get that from my React.js. We are going to be also providing a class names to it, but that's going to be totally optional. Like if you wanted to provide the classes, so you totally can, and if you don't want to provide that, you don't have to. So I'm going to also provide the onClick event handler right here. If you want to provide that, you totally can, but you don't have to. And yeah, now let me just annotate that right here. So I'm going to be using the FC, the functional component, and now let me just provide my element props like that, so which will make it totally clean. So now let me just get this FC like a functional component from my React.js. So now the next thing which I want to do is that I want to destructure all of their values, which we are going to be specifying. So now let me just provide the element type, and also the children. It's going to tag a children, and also the class name as well. If you want to use that, we totally can. So now let me just save that. And here what I want to do is that I'm going to just create an element, and it's going to be equals to the element type as the key of, come on, the key of, if I can get the key of, there we go, the key of JSX intrinsic elements right here. So what in the world is this line of code means? This key of JSX intrinsic element is a TypeScript utility that represents the union type for all of the valid HTML tag elements. Okay, so basically like the key of JSX intrinsic element essentially like create a union type for all of the HTML element names like div, span, h1, buttons, and so on. So this is what we are doing right here. Okay, so instead of providing this div, I'm going to use my element right here. Let me just copy that and let me just place that right here. And here we're going to be also specifying our class name. And in this case, let me just provide my class name right here. And we're going to be also attaching the onClick event handler. This is totally optional. So now let me just provide the onClick event handler right here. And it's going to tag some sort of a data. So now let me just provide that data right here, which we are already defining right here. Like we are defining the element type, we are providing the children, we are providing a class name. Like this is totally optional. If you wanted to provide that, you totally can, but you don't have to. And this one is also optional right here. So now we successfully create our ElementWrapper right here. Now let me just use that inside my page component, and this is not how we are going to be using that. Let me just remove that from here, and I guess section will be fine. So I'm gonna just get my ElementWrapper right here, and now let me just close that because it's gonna take the children, and I'm gonna just specify the element type. So we can either create a div. Here we define that we can either make it as a div or span or h1 or button, nothing else than that. So if I just provide this div, so it's not going to give us any error. But if I just provide like a section or something like that, and if I hover my mouse over to that, so here you can see type section is not assignable to the type div, span, h1 or button. Okay, so let me just, you know what, I'm going to use the div in this case. So now let me just provide my div, and I'm going to also specify some sort of a class name. So the class name will be like a box, and yeah, that's it. The next thing which I want to do is that I want to use a paragraph inside there as a children, which we are already specified. So I'm going to use like this is a div element with a class name of box or something like that. Now let me just save that, and here you can see it's going to give us like this is a div element with a class name of box. So if I right click on that, and here you would see that we have a class name of box right here. Okay, so that's the, let me just make the lowercase h, and now let me just create, I don't know, maybe I'm going to create h1 in this case. So I'm going to just create HTML, not HTML, but ElementWrapper, and I'm going to specify the element type, and the element type will be h1. And we want to also in this case provide the onClick event handler right here, and which is not going to do anything else, but it will just show us like some sort of alert like header or h1 clicked or something like that. So now inside there, what I want to do, I'm going to just specify the header text right here. So if I save my file, so it's going to give us, oh my god, event handler cannot be passed to the client component, so we got to make it as a, god damn it. So now let me just save that, and here you can see it's going to give us like header text right here. So if I click on that, and here you can see we have that h1, but now if I click on that, it's going to also give us like h1 click right here, which means like everything is totally working a-okay. So now let me just create it for the final time. So let me just write it, come on, element type, and now let me just close that. And in this case, I'm going to specify the element, yeah, not element, but the element type will be now set to button, and I'm going to also say on click, like we would be also able to click on that. And in this case, I'm going to just say like alert of button clicked or something like that. And now inside there, I'm going to just say like click me. So if I save my file, why are we getting this error? Ah, not element type, god damn it, ElementWrapper. So now if I save my file, so here you can see it's going to make it as a button. So here you can see it's going to give us that button. If I click on that, so it's going to give us like button click right here. Okay, so yeah, this is how we are going to be creating our element wrapper, and you can define a lot of values right here if you wanted to, but in my case I just create like for a div span and h1 and also for a button. And yeah, that was it about an element wrapper. Time to learn about a type predicates in TypeScript. Yeah, I know that sounds a bit mouthful. So what in the world are type predicates and why I should care about that? So a type predicates are a way to narrow down the type of a variable within a certain block of code. Or you can also say like a type predicate is a function whose return type is a type predicate, or usually a Boolean type. So now first of all, let me just create some sort of a type predicate and then you'll get to know what I'm talking about. So the first thing which I want to do is that I'm going to just remove that from here, and I'm going to just create a simple type predicate button. So let's just create a button.tsx right here. I'm going to also go ahead and remove all of their element wrappers from here. Let's just remove them. I'm going to go ahead and write RFCE, and now let me just write my button right here. Let me just save my file, and here you can see it's going to give us that button right here. So we are not going to be doing anything crazy, but I want to just clear out the concept called the type predicate. So the first thing which I want to do is that I want to create two interfaces. So I'm going to just create an interface, give a name of like primary button prop or props right here, and inside there I'm going to just specify the type of primary right here. I'm going to also give a label of something like, come on, what the hell, label, and the label will be like a string. Okay, so now let me just duplicate that, and I'm going to also create a secondary button props as well. The next thing which I want to do is I want to use the union type to combine both of these types right here. So what I want to do is I'm going to just write a button type, or not a type, button props rather, and it's going to be equals to the primary button and also the secondary button right here. Okay, so that's that. Now here we are going to be creating our first type predicate function. So now let me just write some sort of a comment for myself like type predicate function to check if props are of type primary button props. Okay, so let's just create that. So I'm going to just create a function, give a name of like is primary, and it's going to take some sort of a props right here, and their props will be their button prop right here, which we are already using right here, and we are combining this primary prop, primary button props and also the secondary button props right here. We are combining both of them to this one right here, and we are using that right here as a prop, or you can say we are providing that as an annotation for this prop right here. Okay, so yeah, that's that. The next thing which I want to do is that I want to also annotate the return type. So I'm going to just say like props is primary button props right here, and it will allows us to check if the props are a type of primary button or not. Okay, so I'm going to just use like return props dot type, which we are already specifying right here for this interface and also for this interface as well. So we are going to be checking, let me just write a two, or not two but double or triple equal to the primary right here. So this is our first type predicate function right here. Next thing which I want to do is that I want to create yet another object right here. So I'm going to just write like a primary button props right here, or you know, I'm going to also export that because we would need that later, and I'm going to annotate that with the primary, come on, primary button prop right here. I'm going to annotate that with them, and now here inside this object I'm going to specify a value of type, so the type will be primary in this case, and I'm going to also specify the label of primary button right here. Okay, so now let me just duplicate that for the secondary button as well. So I'm going to just say like in lowercase s. Okay, and I'm going to also specify my secondary button props right here, which will be in uppercase. So in this case for the type, I'm going to just specify the secondary and the primary. So secondary, and I guess I'm misspelling. Oh no, I'm not misspelling that, but secondary, I'm going to have to specify that secondary right here. Then I would be able to use that right here. Now let me just use that inside this function. So what I want to do is that first of all, let me just annotate that right here. So I'm going to just use the fc as a functional component, and I'm going to just specify my button props right here, and I'm going to close that, and it's going to take some sort of a prop. So now let me just provide my props right here, and inside this component, first of all, I want to check. Let me just use the if statement right here, and I'm going to be calling this function which we've already created right here. So you know what, instead of providing the is primary, I'm going to give a name of like I don't know, is primary button prop or something like that. Or props rather. I'm gonna copy the name of this predicate function. Now let me just call that right here, and here I'm going to pass the value of that props which we are already getting right here. Now in this case, in this block of code, the TypeScript compiler will already know that the prop is the primary button prop right here, which you can see right here. Okay, so in this case, what I want to do is that I'm going to just return something. So I'm going to just say like button, and it's going to be just, let's just provide a little bit of styling to it. So I'm going to just provide a background color styling right here, and I'm gonna just provide a blue in this case, and I'm gonna also provide a color of white to it. Okay, so as a label, let me just pass my props dot label right here. Okay, so now let me just save that. And if that's not the case, so what do you want to do? And in this case, the TypeScript compiler will already know that the prop is the secondary button right here. Okay, like the type will be secondary and the label will be secondary button right here. So if that's not the case, so the TypeScript compiler will know that the type is the primary button props right here. But if that's not the case, so the TypeScript compiler will think like it's not a primary, it's a secondary. So now let me just return, let me just return that same stuff. So now let me just copy them, place that right here. I'm gonna change the background to be white, and also this one to be black or something like that. I'm gonna also provide some sort of a border to it. So border will be 1 pixel solid, I don't know, black. Now let me just save my file, and now let me just remove this return statement from here, save my file, and we are already using that right here, but we have to import this primary and also the secondary props right here. So now let me just get that. Let's just get my primary button props and also the secondary button props as well. And here we are going to be specifying that as a dot 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 primary button props and also the secondary button props right here. So now let me just save that. So here you can see it's going to give us that blue button for primary and that white button for the secondary right here. Okay, so this is how we are going to be defining our interfaces. This is how we are going to be combining them, and this is how we are going to be creating our first type predicate function. Okay, so we can go crazier than that, but trust me, you're not going to be using that type predicates not that much. So yeah, that was just a quick intro to the type predicates in TypeScript. Alright guys, so now let's work with the context API and TypeScript. So I'm going to just create a separate folder, give a name of like context. Some people give it a name of store, some people give it a name of shared, or you can give it any name you want, but in my case I just give a name of like context, and inside there I'm going to just create my context.tsx file right here. And now what I want to do is that first of all I'm going to get my create context, not from Vim but from the React. So let me just get that from React right here. The next thing which you have to do is that we have to create our context with the initial values. So I'm going to just write like my context, and it's going to be equals to like create context. And here we are going to be also providing some sort of initial value to that. So initially I'm going to just specify the value of undefined right here. Okay, so that's there, but that's not completely it. So let me just create a separate type for that. So I'm going to just write like type my context data or shape, whatever you want to call that, and we're going to be storing the value of string, and I'm going to also declare the variable type as well, which is going to be returning the new value parameter, and which is not even going to be returning anything at all. So that's why we are using this word right here. Okay, so now let me just provide the types right here, because this create context is also a generic function, which means like we can also provide our own types to it. So it's going to either take my context data or undefined. Okay, and now let me just close that, and that's that. So the next thing which I want to do is that I want to create my provider function. So now let me just write export const and then my context provider, and it's going to tag a children. So now let me just destructure these children's right here, and now inside there we're going to be performing all of our magic. But first of all, let me just create a type for my provider as well. So this is how we are going to be, let me just create that, let's just create it right here. Okay, so type my context provider prop. Okay, and inside there I'm going to be just storing the node React right here, not node React but React node, because we only need these children's right here. So now let me just get there, and I'm going to just provide it as an old way of using the FC, and let's just provide my context provider prop right here. Now let me just close that, and save my file. So here you can see we now successfully create our context. We provide the initial values to that, and we also create our provider right here, but we did not use that, or we did not did anything inside this provider. So now let me just do something inside this provider. So I'm going to just get my value, and also the set value will be equals to the useState. We're going to be using the useState, and I'm going to explicitly provide the string type right here, and initial value I'm going to be holding the string, like a totally empty string, nothing else than that. The next thing which you have to do is that we also have to provide that context value, and I'm going to annotate that with this value right here, which is my context value. So now let me just provide that, or my context data rather. So I'm going to be just providing the value and also the set value, which we are already declaring right here. The final thing which I want to do is that I want to return my context, and I'm going to be also using the provider to provide our values right here. So which kind of values we want to make them public? So we want to make a public value of this context value, which we are already declaring right here. Let me just copy them and place them right here, and I'm going to be also getting these children. So now let me just copy that and provide these children's right here, save my file. And yeah, let me just say that once again, this is how we are going to be creating our context. This is how we are going to be creating a type for our context, like which kind of initial value our context is going to be holding, and this is how we are going to be providing that, either provide that or undefined. Okay, and then we are creating a type for these children right here as well, which we are getting from the React declaration files. And then the next thing which we are doing is that we are just getting the value and the set value, and we are providing the type of string to it. Then we are just storing them inside this object, and then we are providing that object right here as a value to the provider of this context. So now let me just use that right here. So I'm going to just create a component, give a name of like my component or something like that, and I'm going to first of all get my use context right here, and I'm going to also get my context right here as well. From where? Let me just go ahead and go to the context, and then I'm gonna just get my context right here. Okay, so now let me just create my RAFCE React functional component, and inside there, what do you have to do? We have to use that right here. So context, and it's going to be equals to use context right here, and we are going to be just providing my context right here. There we go. And we are going to be also checking if somebody does not have any context. So what do you want to do in that case? So if you don't have any context, like if you are not using any context, so we just want to throw new error, and we just want to say like my component must be used within my context provider. There we go, which we are going to be also doing in a few seconds, but bear with me for a second. So we are going to need a few things from our context, which we are already getting right here. So which kind of things we would need from that? We're going to need the value and also the set value from our context, which we are already defining right here. So we are defining the value and also the set value. So we need that right here inside our component. So let's just remove that, and now let me just use that right here. So I'm going to just provide my paragraph, and let me just provide the value, and here let me just render my value right here dynamically, and I'm going to also provide the input field. So for this input field, the type will be text. We're not going to be providing any name or IDs, but I am going to provide the value of that value which we are getting from our context. And for the onChange event handler, what do you want to do? We just want to provide a set value right here, and now let me just pass my e.target down value. There we go. So now if I save my file, so it's going to give us an error. So let's just wait for that, refresh that. God damn it. It was something. It's going to give us that error inside the console, I presume. Nope. I guess we have to restart that, because I've been writing this code for a long time, and we did not even refresh anything, and we are getting error. Value does not exist on a type string or number. Anyways, it will give us an error right here, but I don't know why it's not showing right here. Now let me just wrap my entire component on that, what do we call that, provider right here. So I'm going to just remove that from here, and inside there what I want to do is that I want to get first of all my context provider right here, and inside there we are going to be just providing my component. And now let me just execute that, save my file. So now it's going to give us, and it is going to say cannot read the property of reading context. Oh, we are not exporting that. That's because. So now let me just export that right here, save my file, and it should be working. Let me just grab that once again, my context. And now if I save my file, and here you can see it is now giving us their value and their input field right here. So now let me just write like something else or something like this. Here you can see it's going to give us there's something else right here, which is totally working, by the way. So yeah, that was the first example. Now let me just give you one more example of how to work with context with TypeScript right here. So now let me just give you one more example. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and go to my context. I'm going to just remove every single thing that I currently have. Okay, so now let me just get my create context, not from Vim but from the React right here, and I'm going to just define my interface. So interface, and I'm going to give a name of like my context prop, or props would be fine rather. And here we are going to be storing a few values like count. So the count will be set to numbers, and we're going to have two functions. So increment, and it's not going to return anything, so we're going to have to change that to void. And we would also have the decrement function as well. Okay, so this is our shape for our context. So now let me just export my context as well, because the last time I forgot to do that. And now let me just create my context right here. And initial value, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just specify my context props. Come on, let me just copy that and place that right here. And now let me just provide some sort of initial value, like for the count will be set to 0, and for the increment, oh come on, increment will be just totally empty function right here in this case. And we would also have a totally empty function for the decrement as well. Come on, let me just copy that name from here, place that right here. So that's the initial value. Now let me just create a provider. So my provider, and I'm going to just provide their children right here. So children, and let me just create a type for that. So type, well not type, but I'm gonna just create interface right here, and interface my provider props right here. And I'm not gonna provide this equal to sign right here, so it's gonna take only the children, and the children will be coming from the React node. And now let me just annotate that by using this fc functional component. And I'm gonna just specify not context but my provider props. Let me just provide that and close that right here. And now inside this provider, I'm gonna be just getting like count and set count, and it's gonna be equals to the useState. And now let me just provide the initial value of 0, and let's just explicitly or implicitly, whatever you want to call that, set that to number. So now let me just create that function body or actions, whatever you want to call that. So increment, and we are going to be just creating this set count function, and I'm going to just say like count plus 1. Let me just create for a decrement as well, decrement. There we go. And I'm going to change this one to minus. And now let me just return my context provider. So my context, and I'm going to also provide the provider right here. Let me just copy that, place that right here. And I'm going to also provide the values of count and also increment function and also the decrement function, which we've already defined up above. And I'm going to also provide the children like so. So now let me just save my file. Let's just go back, and these are every single thing that we need. But we are getting some sort of error. This expression is not callable. Yep, my bad. I shouldn't be doing that. I should have provided less than or and greater than sign. Now it is totally correct. But I'm going to also have to export that right here. So I'm going to use export default of my provider. And now you'll be successfully able to use that right here inside our project. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my component. And let's just remove this entire component from here. And I'm going to just get, first of all, the use context. I'm going to also get my context right here, and let's just create our component. And I'm going to go ahead and use let me just grab a few things from my use context. So use context right here, and I'm going to specify my context to it like so. So we're going to get all of the things which we are providing right here. So now let me just copy that, place that right here, and now let me just use that right here. So I'm going to just say like count, and here let's just render our count right here. And I'm going to also provide some sort of a button and increment and decrement right here. Let's just provide the on click event handler on both of them. For the first one, I'm going to just say like increment. For the second one, I'm going to say decrement. But why in the world we are getting this error? If I hover my mouse over to there, JSX expression must have one parent element. Yep, baby. Let's just wrap that with the React fragments like so. Now let me just save my file, and it's gonna give us that error because we have to use that right here inside this page. Let's just remove all of that stuff from here. I'm gonna also remove all of that stuff from here. Let me use my provider, and inside this provider, come on, and inside this provider I'm gonna get my component, or not component, but yeah, my component right here, my component like so. Let me just close that, and we don't need that context right here. Save my file, and now let me just refresh that. So it's going to give us that increment and also that decrement button. If I click on that, so it's going to increment our counter, so it's going to decrement our counter right here. So yeah, this is how we are going to be using TypeScript with the context API and Next.js and React.js. Alright, so now let's provide the types for the useReducer. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to remove this context from here. I'm going to also remove this component from here as well. And I'm going to just create a component given name of like counter.tsx. And inside this component, first of all, we're going to need the useReducer because we are going to be using this useReducer right here. And now what I want to do is that I'm going to use my RIFCE, and inside there we are going to be using our useReducer right here. So I'm going to provide a state and also the dispatch right here as well. And here we just have to call our useReducer, and we're going to be also creating this function which is called reducer, and let's just provide the initial value of count of 0. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to copy that, and let me just create this function right here. So I'm going to just write like const reducer function, and inside this function, what do you want to do? This function will take the state and also the action as well. So if I hover my mouse over to this state, so it is giving us two errors right here. State is declared but its value is never used, and also the state has implicitly type of any. So now let me just create a types for the state and also for the action as well. So the first thing which I want to do is that I want to create a state type right here. So I'm going to just give a name of like state, and inside there we are not going to be doing anything crazy, but I'm going to just provide a count, and I'm going to set that to number right here. And now let me just annotate that right here. So I'm going to just say like stat, and now let me just annotate that. So now let me just create a type for this action as well. So I'm going to define an action right here, and it's going to be equals to the type of either the increment in uppercase increment, and also or we're going to be using the union type right here, decrement right here. Okay, so now let's just annotate that. So now let's just annotate that action with this action type right here. And I'm going to also specify that state as a return value because we are going to be just returning the value of number right here, which will be count. So that's why I also annotate that right here. So if I hover my mouse over to that, so it's going to give us an error. It's going to say like a function whose declared type is neither undefined nor void. So we have to satisfy that right here. So to satisfy that, I'm going to be using my switch cases right here. So for the switch, I'm going to specify the action.type. So if action.type is set to increment, so what do you want to do in that case? We just want to return, let me just remove this break from here, and I'm going to just return the count, and I'm going to just say like stat, come on, stat.count plus 1. Okay, so if that's the case, so now let me just duplicate that and change that to decrement. So if that's the case, so we are going to be just using this minus right here, and for the default we are going to be just returning the stat. There we go. So now if I save my file, and here you can see that error is totally gone because we are now satisfying this count right here, and which is set to number. So yeah, so now we successfully register our useReducer right here. We create a reducer function for that. We even provided types for that right here. And now let me just use that right here. So I'm going to just remove this counter from here, and I'm going to just provide my paragraph and set that to count. And here now let me just render my stat.count right here, and I'm going to also provide a button, and it's going to say like increment, and let me just duplicate that, decrement right here. Now let me just provide the event handler. So when somebody clicks on that, so what do you want to do? We just want to dispatch our action, and I'm going to just specify the type of increment right here. So you know what, I'm not going to copy that. Let me just write that right here. So I'm going to use that dispatch once again, and the type will be decrement in this case. So now if I save my file, let me just go back, and here you can see we don't have to do nothing, but we just have to provide a separate type for the action and also for the state as well. So yeah, That's that. And the next thing which I want to do is I want to use that somewhere, so I'm gonna go ahead and use that right here. Let me just remove all of their imports, and I'm gonna just render my counter button right here, or counter component to be precise. So now let me just save that, refresh that, so it's gonna give us that count of 0. If I click on that, so it's gonna increment it, and it's gonna decrement it right here. So yeah, this is how we are going to be providing a types for our useReducer. So the final topic of this course which I'm going to talk about is the useState. So I'm going to just remove this component from here, and now let me just create one more component given name of like my component.tsx, and here we are going to be using TypeScript with the useEffect. So we are not going to be writing crazy amount of stuff, but we are going to be using that TypeScript with the useEffect right here. So now let me just save that. The first thing we would need is that we want to fetch some sort of a data from some sort of third-party services. So I'm going to just create a state for that. So I'm going to just write data and set data right here, and it's going to be equals to the useState event handler, or hook to be precise. And here what do you want to do, we just want to initially provide the value of null right here, and then I'm going to be using the useEffect because here we are providing a side effect. So here we have to use this useEffect right here, and inside this useEffect we are going to be fetching some sort of a data. So I'm going to just create a function given name of like fetch data, and it's going to be equals to the asynchronous function because we are going to be working with the asynchronous operation. And now let me just use my try and catch. For the catch block I'm going to be using console.error in this case, and I'm going to just say like I don't know, error fetching, come on, fetching data or something like that, and I'm going to also render that error right here as well. Error. Okay, so for the try block, what do you want to do, we just want to get some sort of response. So const response will be equals to await response, response, there we go, await and fetch. We're going to be fetching our data from this https and then dummy json dummyjson.com/, and then we want to just get only one product right here. Okay, so if we get that, the next thing which you want to do is that we want to set our data. So I'm going to just use result, and it's going to be equals to await and response.json. Come on, response.json. We want to convert our data to the JSON response, and then we have to just use the set data and provide our result inside there. Okay, so we would be successfully fetching our data, but now we have to render that data somewhere, and I'm going to also have to call this function right here because we register our function, so we have to call that somewhere. So now let me just remove them, and now inside there the first thing which you want to do is that we want to check if we have the data. So what do you want to do if you don't have the data? Then what else do you want to do? So if we have the data, so we just want to create a div, and inside this div I'm going to create an ID, I mean like paragraph of ID, and here we just have to render our data.id right here, and I'm going to just duplicate that a few times. The first one we have is ID, the second one we would have is a title, and also I'm going to have to change that to lowercase title, will give us the description. But anyways, if that's not the case, so we just want to provide some sort of a loader right here. So I'm going to just say like loading ... Now let me just save that, and here you can see it will obviously give us an error because we are not using TypeScript, and it's going to give us that error right here. So if I hover my mouse over to that, so property ID does not exist on type never, so we have to provide a type for that. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? This is how we are going to be doing that. Let me just write a type of product, and it's going to be equals to and thumbnail, I guess this is how you spell it, and it is also set to string, thumbnail. So now let me just use this product right here. So I'm going to copy the name of that, and here I'm going to be using it right here. Okay, so either use this product or gives us a null. Okay, so now if I save my file and refresh that, so it's going to give us failed to read the source code from counter.tsx. Yeah, I have to use that, my bad. I'm gonna have to remove that, and let me just render my component, which is my component. Yep, my component. Now let me just use that, save my file and run that. So it's going to give us loading first of all while it is fetching their data, and then it will give us their ID and also title and all of that kind of stuff right here. We can also iterate over through the images if we wanted to. So let me just comment this line out, and I'm going to be just writing like data.images.map, and here we have to just write like img for a simple image, and I'm going to just write img. And for the src, let me just close that right here. For the src, I'm going to be using that img right here. You can also write this alternative text if you wanted to. So I can just write like data.title or id would be fine. So if I save my file, and it's going to give us all of their images right here. Okay, so let me just also write these images right here. So images will be a string. So if I save my file, and here you can see that error will be gone. So yeah, this is how you're going to be working with TypeScript and also the Next.js. So now let me just remove that from here because we don't need that. So now let me just show you how you are going to be making your types global so you can use it anywhere inside your programs. So here you can see we already have this next-env-d file right here, but we can also create our own one right here. So if I just write like types, or you know what, typing.d.ts. So if I just create this file right here, now let me just cut these types from here. Let me just cut that from here, and let me just put that right here. And now if I save my file, so it's not going to give us any errors. So here you can see if I hover my mouse over to there, still it is giving us all of that properties and all of that types right here. Why is that? This file is global, which means like we can use this type anywhere inside our program. Okay, so if you want a global type, so this is how you're going to be storing that. Not this one, but this is how you're going to be storing that, and this is how you're going to be working with that. Alrighty, so thank you so much for watching this course, and I hope you learned a lot of stuff from it. And if you like my content, so feel free to subscribe to my channel, and you can also follow me on GitHub, and I will love to see you on GitHub. So yeah, thank you so much for watching once again, and take care. Bye bye, love you all.